Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Hello Velocity podcast. I'm so excited you're here today. And today I've been thinking about the last few episodes where we've been talking about well-being and self-care and morning routines. And I realized something that these all have in common is habits. And that's something we haven't really dove into yet about our habits and how we can bring them to life and how to make them even easier so that we can support all of these other aspects of our lives. So today, let's dive into habits and how we can be more supportive in those new habits that you want to be building. And habits are those things that we do routinely, a lot of times without even thinking about it because they're just become so normalized in our day to day. And they can be either helpful and supportive to our goals, or they can actually be hurtful to our goals and hold us back. But today, I want to focus specifically on the good habits we're working on building that are going to support our goals. And I realized too, as I was thinking through this topic, we're definitely going to need a whole other episode just about breaking up with bad habits. So stay tuned for that, coming soon. But today, let's talk about those good habits. And I like to emphasize this piece about the difference between goals and habits because they're so connected and because they really go hand in hand. We need to have really specific goals, and we need to think about our habits and how those habits will support our goals on a day-to-day basis, or else we're not setting ourselves up for success. So a great example here is, say your goal is you want to lose 20 pounds. Well, we need to look at your habits. What are your workout habits? What are your eating habits? What are your sleeping habits? Things like that that will then connect directly to that goal. And again, we want to think through those on a daily basis of how you're showing up and how consistently you're showing up in those habits. And habits come up all the time with my coaching clients. These are things we talk about almost every session to check in on their progress, to see how consistent they're being, to see what we need to be tweaking to make them work even better for themselves. And some of those common topics that come up, like I mentioned already, the eating healthier, working out more, sleeping more, drinking more water, reading more, learning something new, being on our phones less, adding journaling into our morning routines, maybe some meditation, things like that all come up in these coaching sessions. And I like to think about all of these too as how they make you be a better leader. Because back to our last few episodes, it's like we're filling our cup with a lot of these habits. These are the things that will help energize you. They're the things that maybe light you up or literally fuel your body so that you can work at your best, you can be at your best, and you can have the most energy for yourself and your family as well. And if you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is super helpful with really tangible examples and ideas of how to help you stick to your goals and how to break up with goals. So I will link that in the show notes. And I also found a really cool, quick, I think about 30-minute summary video of the book, which also will give you all the highlights in a quick digestible piece if you're not that into reading or don't maybe have the time yet to read this full book. As we're talking about our habits, the things I want to focus in on are actually how to set ourselves up for the most success by thinking about the most common ways I see our habits failing us, because that's usually what I'm talking about with clients is that they have these great goals, they have these great habits, they come into our sessions really excited about them at the beginning, and then over the next few sessions, they're realizing something's not working, and that's what we're digging into together to help them figure out what works for them, what doesn't work for them. Over these last 6 years of coaching people, I've found these top 3 ways that people are actually hurting themselves when it comes to habits or holding themselves back when it comes to habits. So I want to share those with you so that you can avoid these pitfalls as well and make life so much easier for yourself. So first and foremost, the biggest way I see people holding themselves back when it comes to starting a new habit or starting to be committed to a new habit is that they're trying to go from 0 to 100 overnight. It's this all or nothing mentality, this black and white mentality. And honestly, a lot of people like me who are those overachievers, perfectionists, we love to do this to ourselves. We want to be the best at everything. We want to do everything so well. So when we are trying to commit to something new, we're like, well, I see other people doing it to this degree of excellence. I'm going to start doing that immediately. But that's not realistic. We need to give ourselves some time to adjust to these new habits. We need to ladder ourselves up to that instead of just jumping all in immediately. So 2 quick things I like to think about if you're one of these people that wants to go from 0 to 100 is instead think about what it would look like to do 10%. So what's that on a scale of 0 to 100? What's 10? How can we start with that? How can we start to break up these habits instead of going from, for example, again, people trying to get back into working out after maybe a bit of a hiatus, or maybe you've never even worked out. You think, oh, people always say you should go every morning before work. So you try to go from literally never going to the gym to every single morning, Monday to Friday, for an hour at 5 a.m. That's a big jump. So what would 10% be? Maybe you go twice that week for 30 minutes. So you're easing your schedule into it, you're easing your body into it, because also think about how sore your body's going to be getting back into working out. So think about those little jumps along the way, make them more of a baby step for you instead of this huge leap from nothing to 100. And all of this, we just really want to make this as simple as possible for ourselves, for our body to adjust to. So maybe the next week after that, it's 10% again, and then maybe you're up to 20%, 30%, something like that. And again, you need to meet yourself where you're at. So this might be different for everyone, but play with different levels of habits and see what works best for you and adjust along the way and continue to check in with yourself. Because if you're trying to go from 0 to 100, you're likely going to fail a lot quicker and give up on yourself a lot quicker, and we don't want that. We want to set really simple milestones for ourselves at the beginning to make it as easy as possible for us to continue over the long term. So if we make these little bite-sized 10% leaps each week, it's going to be a lot easier to succeed with that, and it's going to inspire us and motivate us and excite us to keep going. Another example I see this coming up is even meditating. That's another one that a lot of people want to get into, and you want to do it every single day. You want to do 10, 20-minute meditation every day. And that's what, the gurus say you should be doing, allegedly. But that's really hard to get into, honestly. So where can you meet yourself from where you're at today to where you want to be? How can you gradually get there? How can you make it easy on yourself? How can you make it more fun and approachable and simple? Maybe you're planning in advance which meditations you're listening to, or you have an app that will give you guided daily recommendations. And if you're going from never having meditated before to wanting to do this every day, it's likely not going to happen immediately, and that's okay. So maybe it's just a quick 3-minute meditation one day, and then a few days later, it's another 3-minute, and then over time, you can gradually make it a little bit longer. Or maybe you realize as you're doing this that 10 minutes is your sweet spot, and you really look forward to your 10-minute break. And maybe it's not first thing in the morning. Maybe it's on your lunch break. Maybe it's how you wrap up at the end of your workday. Think about what works best for you, your schedule, your energy, how to make it more useful for you, and not just doing what everyone else says you need to be doing. Another way I see people commonly missing their habits or falling off their bandwagon is what I call the set it and forget it. They set these great habits, they set these great goals. Maybe at the beginning of the year, they want to shift their behavior, they're all excited about it. And then they fall off the bandwagon maybe a week or two in. And usually, if it's not the 0 to 100 mentality that we just talked about, it's usually that we're just not making it something that we are keeping top of mind. It's just something we told someone somewhere one time that we wanted to do this habit, but we didn't actually create a plan of how we're going to do it. We didn't set ourselves up with a plan, with an initiative, with a support system to get there. Or we didn't think through how we'd actually get there. So if this is you, if this is something you struggle with your habits, I definitely recommend how to make it as easy as possible for yourself, how to incorporate it into your daily life. And one of my favorite tips here from the Atomic Habits book is habit stacking. What are some other habits that you're already doing every single day without even thinking about it that are good habits that you can stack this other new habit into? So a simple example here is if you're trying to start journaling in the morning, maybe you set your journal literally right next to your coffee machine. Because if you're a coffee person, I guarantee you're not forgetting to make your coffee in the morning. So how wonderful will that be? You have a fresh cup of coffee, your journal right there, you go sit somewhere quiet and spend 5-10 minutes journaling. Just making it that much easier for yourself can go a long way. Instead of having a journal in the other room, you're not seeing it, it's not top of mind. So how do we make it literally top of mind and in our view so that we are reminded to do it visually as well? And other reminders and cues that are super helpful here, even simply putting post-its around your house of the things you want to be doing as quick reminders, or even just motivational things you can say about the goal that you're working on or the habit you're working on. Maybe you're adding reminders on your phone, alarms on your phone every day to remind you to do the thing you're trying to do. And another huge piece here is having an accountability buddy. This will really help you get to that next level by, first of all, saying it out loud to someone else and being really specific with, okay, can we check in on this day at this time to see if I've made it this far on whatever it is. So get as really specific as you can about how you want to check in with them. And I always use a framework of who does what by when. So I want to have completed 5 days of meditation by the next time we talk next week. Simple as that, right? Doesn't have to be too complicated. But having that accountability buddy can go a long way in helping you not forget it, and having that outside accountability is huge. And the last piece here of how I see people usually failing with their habits is that they're actually choosing habits that are externally based, not internally based. What I mean by that is that it's a habit that either someone else is doing that you think sounds good, or you maybe feel some sort of pressure by society or other people or the media that you should be doing it as well, or even the certain numbers that you're working towards are externally based by other people and not yourselves. This one's a little bit harder to pinpoint versus the other ones. It can be something where if I asked you straight up, hey, is this something that you really want to do? Or is it coming from someone else? You'd say, oh, I definitely want to do it, right? We tend to get defensive, or we might just simply be excited about it or think it is coming internally. How I recommend you check in with yourself is simply asking yourself why you want to do this habit. And sometimes you have to ask yourself why several times, up to 5 times I recommend, to really get to the root motivation for it if it's not that obvious. And I want you to have something really tangible when you're looking at this habit of what your why is, because having that on its own is really motivating and really helpful for you when you don't feel like doing the habit. You want to have something deep within you that is motivating you to move forward on it. Some common examples I see of habits and goals that are externally motivated is even a financial goal of how much money you want to make in a year. And the number that you're picking usually is, again, just something that society or your family or your friends have already talked about or have put maybe up on a pedestal or sounds really good from those other people, or maybe even from a movie or show or something like that. But think about where that number actually came from, if you can even narrow it down. And if you can't narrow it down, then why that number? Instead, maybe think about what number you want to hit based on all of your other goals, based on the lifestyle you want, based on the things you want to be doing, and create your own number yourself. Start adding up the numbers you want to be hitting and see what that actually looks like on an annual basis so that you have your why for that specific number instead of just saying, oh, I want to hit 6 figures. Oh, I want to hit $100,000. And again, that's usually the exact example a lot of people have because it just sounds good, or it's just a number that's kind of thrown out a lot in our society. Another habit I see with this too is reading more. And a lot of times there's a specific number, like, 20 books a year, 12 books a year, whatever it is for you. But when I ask people why, a lot of times they can't come up with a reason for this why. And sometimes I've found it could be someone else I knew did this type of goal or this type of challenge, or maybe they just want to seem more well-rounded. They want to appear more intellectual or something like that for other people. But first of all, do you even like reading? Let's start with that. Okay, if you like reading, great. Definitely encourage you to read more. If it's something you enjoy and it's something maybe you do want to be learning more, you want to spend your time in a book instead of watching TV or scrolling TikTok, that's great. But think about maybe that habit. Is it every single night for you? Does that make sense? Or is that just, again, something you think you should be doing because other people are doing? And is it a certain number, again, just externally motivated from other people? Or is it something you really want that accomplishment of 1 book a month because you want to learn 1 new topic a month? Let's get down to the internal motivation of what you really want from each of those books or from a certain number of books, or from the habit of reading. So think about what that looks like for you and your habits and how we can think about these a little bit differently. All right. So our big takeaways from today are the 3 different ways I see most people setting themselves up for failure when it comes to their goals and what we can do differently to help make our goals and habits more sticky. The first way we get in our way most often when we're setting new habits and goals is that we try the all or nothing mentality, and instead we need to be taking baby steps to get there more consistently and over the long term. Then we have the set it and forget it, and instead of that, we need to really try to make these as easy as possible. We need more accountability and we need as much support as possible. And lastly is the externally based habits and goals. And instead, we need to look inward for our motivation and have something that really excites us and is truly based on something that we want and not someone else wants for us. All right, that's it for today's episode. I'll see you soon.